Hello, Internet, and welcome to Jake Reads Comics. As always, Jake Reads Comics is brought to you by Astounding Tales Issue 0, and Astounding Tales Issue 1, out now. And Astounding Tales Issue 2, the Kickstarter, will be launching shortly. So the best way to support this show, if you do enjoy it, if you do enjoy Jake Reads Comics, is to support the Kickstarter. Astounding Tales is brought to you by myself and the amazing artist Ray Griffith. We collaborate to bring you that comic. Today's Jake Reads Comics is issue 1 or part 1 of the X-Cutioner song. So this is a crossover from the early 90s, shortly after Chris Claremont left after his, I believe it was a 16 or 17 year run. I just started reading X-Men comics maybe a year or two prior to this. So I was a kid when this was released, I believe in 91, Uncanny X-Men 294. I had a subscription to X-Men comics, I believe started around issue 290. So this is shortly after Whilce Portacio left Uncanny X-Men and Jim Lee left Adjectiveless X-Men to start up Image Comics. So this issue is Scott Lobdell writing it and Brendan Peterson penciling it. I'm not super familiar with Brendan Peterson's work, but we have a very familiar ex-inker, and that's good old Terry Austin, who was a collaborator with Byrne and Chris Claremont on a lot of classic X-Men comics. And in this era of X-Men comics, you really see that they're kind of running on the fumes of the Claremont era and leaning heavily on the designs of the Jim Lee era. This is kind of right before you're going to get shortly the animated series and all the action figures, etc. So this is part 1 of the X-Cutioner song. At this point, Archangel Warren Worthington III is using an image inducer, so we kind of see him in his classic depiction as Angel and not with the blue skin. We get Rogue, we get Bishop. One of the things about the Claremont era, and Bishop is kind of very at the tail end or a few issues after the Claremont era ends, but there was always kind of that decade's X-Men. So there was the kind of the consistent cast, but kind of like Rogue was one of the X-Men for the 80s. Bishop is certainly one of our X-Men for the 90s. And we have what we, spoiler alert, what we think is Cable. A few issues before this, when Rob Liefeld was still doing X-Force, in those early issues, it is revealed that Cable has someone who looks just like him, or this is before any of that was really flushed out, so still very ambiguous. Who's Strife, who's Cable? We have Cyclops and Jean Grey in a classic X-Men location, Harry's Hideaway. And we have Bobby and Piotr, Colossus and Iceman, doing some food shopping. So one of the things I really like about the X-Cutioner song and these early X-Men comics, or early for me, you know, this is, X-Men has been around for a while, this is in the early 90s, is kind of just the wide breadth of characters and this kind of the depth of the world that we're inhabiting, that Chris Claremont really constructed. So we got a place, Harry's Hideaway, Salem Center. These are all places, characters that have been well developed over Claremont's long run. So again, you know, that your X-Men for different eras. We have Storm, who was there in Giant Size #1, so one of our 70s X-Men who's been a stalwart since then. But Gambit, coming a Jim Lee, Chris Claremont creation. And this is my era's X Factor, when they are a government team. So after you have the original 5 being X Factor, they leave to rejoin the X-Men after the Mere Island saga. We now have Quicksilver, Multiple Man, Strong Guy, Polaris, Wolfsbane, and Havoc are part of the government-sponsored X Factor. Prior to this, the government-sanctioned team was actually the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or Freedom Force. So This is a little bit of a change of pace for the government-sponsored mutant team, but this is kind of my, this is very nostalgic for me. This is my X-Factor. But really, like I said, we're really seeing Lobdell and I guess editorial Bob Harras kind of living off the fumes of what Claremont created. So we have Caliban, or the kind of 90s version of the Horseman, or I guess in the 80s he was turning to the Horseman. In that Walt Simonson, Louise Simonson X-Factor run, we do see that the characters are kind of given amped up 80s versions powers, especially those original X-Men who had more kind of 60s golden age powers, or silver age powers rather. You know, Angel having those feathered wings, or Beast just having big feet. You kind of get the amped up, more extreme 80s version of them, and Caliban gets that through Apocalypse. He's a hound, so he has some resentment towards Cyclops and Jean, and he's about to take it out on them. You know, he's a Morlock, a tragic figure. The Morlocks are tragic figures. Just a few issues earlier, they were seen to be wiped out by Mikhail Rasputin, Colossus's brother. But we are at a Lila Cheney concert. We see a man that appears to be Cable. But then we cut back to Salem Center. Colossus and Iceman know that, or see that Jean and Psyche are having trouble at Harry's hideaway. This great splash page, or it's not really a splash page. We have this other panel, but you know, we have this large anchor image, and does a good job of conveying metal, which I think can be tough for some artists. The Colossus's skin. That's a pretty cool Iceman. But the Horsemen of Apocalypse, classic X-Factor foes, are stop them dead in their tracks to allow Caliban to finish his pursuit and bring his prey back to whoever sent him out to capture Cyclops and Jean Grey. Of course, that will be revealed in later issues. People still using kind of that Jim Lee art style, that heavy hatching or that cross hatching, which really kind of, you know, Jim Lee kind of set the look for X-Men for years to come. And here we have it. An assassin shoots Professor Xavier. It appears to be Cable. And then we smash cut back to Harry's hideaway. Caliban, who always had the power to sense and track mutants, but was a very frail character who always craved power to protect those he loved, kind of became warped and twisted by Apocalypse upon receiving that strength he always wanted. So someone sent him to track down Cyclops and Jean Grey, and he's going to accomplish his goal. We have pestilence, or famine rather, and war, continuing their battle against Colossus and Iceman. So this comic, you know, one of the things I enjoy about it, it's not a perfect comic, but it really moves. It almost has that kind of that energy of a classic Jack Kirby comic, where a lot of characters, a lot of concepts, and the plot's moving. We're going. Archangel breaks into action, and Cable rather shoots him in the wing, stopping him from apprehending the assailant. But that's going to be some nice pathos later on in this crossover series. Archangel really doesn't like that Apocalypse turned him into a tool of death, and the one time, or not the one time, but he sees it as, you know, one of the only times where these wings can be of benefit, not a tool of death. They fail him. So there's some some memorable scenes to come with Archangel. And now we smash cut again. We're moving. We're at different locations, different exteriors, interiors. Now we're, bam, New Mexico. We're seeing the New Mutants, and they left the tutelage of Magneto and Professor Xavier, and they're kind of their own mutant strike force team. Cable took them under their wing, but Cable is nowhere to be found, and they find out that apparently Cable has assassinated Professor Xavier. So one of the things I like about the X-Cutioner song, especially as a child, it's kind of really like action figures smacking up against each other in the sandbox. So for a kid, it was a whole lot of fun. So in 1992 when this took place, so I was 9 years old. This was a great time. And next you see X Factor, and again you see X Factor is being sent to apprehend the New Mutants. So all your favorite characters, you're being really thrown into this wild X-Men world, and it's a lot of fun. So people enjoy this, let me know, and we will read future issues of or installments of the X-Cutioner song. That was part 1. If you join, this kind of puts it on Front Street who are involved. You got the adjectiveless X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, X Factor, X-Force, Apocalypse, Strife, Cable. If those are things that sound exciting to you, you might want to check out X-Cutioner song. So thanks for joining me. And as always, brought to you by Astounding Tales, the comic Ray Griffith and I create. And thanks for joining me. Have a great week.